Donald Trump's plan to ethnically cleanse 2 million Palestinians has been the dominating theme of the media coverage across the world today. The chilling development of last night when Trump audaciously pronounced his words in utter contempt of international law reverberated across TV screens. This also exposed some of the most prominent but severely compromised politicians, particularly those running the government in the United Kingdom at the moment. British Prime Minister, who has used everything in his capacity up until now to whitewash Israel's war crimes in Gaza, was no different. In the half an hour long Prime Minister's questions in the UK Parliament on Wednesday, which is today, there was just one MP, yes, one MP who thought of asking a question in relation to Trump's sick plan. He was Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrat. Just watch the meek and, frankly speaking, disgraceful response from this Starmer fellow. No animated response like he's used to displaying on Ukraine or when victims are whites.
Last night, many of us were alarmed to hear President Trump speak about forcibly displacing 1.8 million people from Gaza. The Prime Minister has spoken to the President on several occasions now. Does he personally believe that Trump recognises the dangers of statements like this to the fragile ceasefire in Gaza and indeed to the security of both Palestinians and Israelis? I'm glad that the Foreign Secretary has confirmed that the government's position is still a two-state solution. I think that has support on all sides of the House. But will he reassure the House that this position and our concerns on these dangerous statements from the President will be communicated to the White House directly and firmly?
Yeah.
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you raised a very important issue. The most important issue on the ceasefire is obviously it's sustained. We see it through the phases, and that means that the remaining hostages come out and the aid that's desperately needed gets into Gaza at speed and at the volumes that are needed. I have, from the last few weeks, two images fixed in my mind. The first is the image of Emily Damari reunited with her mother, which I found extremely moving. The second was the image of thousands of Palestinians walking, literally walking through the rubble to try to find their homes and their communities in Gaza. They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
I'm sorry, if this doesn't expose these Western politicians' deeply racist mentality, then what does? After all, this is the same Starmer who had wasted no time in calling the goings-on in Ukraine as genocide, but he has refused to use that word to describe the massacres of Palestinians by his Israeli terrorist friends in Gaza. This also shows that these politicians can go to any extent to stay in power, even if it means acting as America's poodle. Why just blame Starmer? His clown foreign secretary, David Lammy, was in Kiev. It took him more than 15 hours to issue this response.
Donald Trump is right. Looking at those scenes of Palestinians who have been horrendously displaced over so many months of war, it's clear that Gaza is lying in rubble. We've always been clear in our belief that we must see two states. We must see Palestinians able to live and prosper in their homelands, in Gaza, in the West Bank.
Now compare his latest response to his past utterances in support of Israel, when he even resorted to lying by repeating the fake rape narrative.
The tunneling of Hamas, and we must recognise that Israel is facing a huge existential crisis. 1,300 people dead, murdered, babies raped.
This has conclusively established one thing, and that is that UK has zero standing in global politics. Either its politicians are downright corrupt, or they enjoy the sight of genocide of non-white population, or they are severely compromised. This also means that the UK has no red line when it comes to standing up to American nonsense. No amount of crazy genocidal utterances by Trump would warrant a condemnation from British politicians, Starmer and Lammy in this case. They are simply pathetic souls. Trump's plan to forcibly displace 2 million Palestinians out of Gaza prompted many to freely use the term ethnic cleansing to describe the US president's suggestion. This Sky News presenter became a hero of sorts by being perhaps the only journalist associated with a legacy media to call out Trump's genocidal plans how it should be. Massive respect for Alistair Bunkle.
Practically, how could it happen? I mean, how do you forcibly displace 2 million Gazans without it becoming a breach of international law, without it being ethnic cleansing?
BBC too couldn't avoid using this term, albeit its representatives attributing the term ethnic cleansing of Palestinians to Trump's critics. Watch Ben Brown and Tom Bettman. Tom, to be fair, has been one of the rare journalists in the last 15 months who routinely embarrassed Anthony Blinken and his minions on the US administration's support for Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza.
Palestinian leaders have rejected a proposal from President Trump for the United States to take control of the Gaza Strip. The president said the US would help turn Gaza into what he called the Riviera of the Middle East, but critics of the plan say it would amount to ethnic cleansing.
Not only does Mr. Trump's proposal amount to a fundamental shift in United States policy towards Israel and the Palestinians of unprecedented proportions, but it could also have more immediate implications for the ceasefire and hostage release discussions.
Netanyahu, you're a tyrant!
Nearby, protesters called for Mr. Netanyahu's trial at the International Criminal Court, which last year issued arrest warrants for him, his defense minister, and a Hamas leader. They called Mr. Trump's idea a plan for ethnic cleansing.
This is what happened on US TV network, MSNBC.
I think we need to reiterate what the President of the United States just said, and you said it, but it bears repeating. He just said that it will be United States policy to forcibly displace 2 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. That is ethnic cleansing by another name. He said the United States would then own the Gaza Strip and that we would develop the Gaza Strip and that other countries would take these Palestinians. He says he's talked to a lot of people and they think it's a great idea. Well, we know that just a few weeks ago, the Arab countries, key Arab countries, had an emergency meeting and responded forcefully against this idea and said it was unacceptable. So what the president is doing here is really throwing a match on an already very volatile region.
Even UK's Guardian, which has been pushing Israel's genocidal propaganda routinely, wrote this in its subheadline. I wish it had used the term ethnic cleansing in its main headline, but that's too much to expect from compromised media. Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zomlot, summed it up brilliantly on Sky News when he said emphatically that Palestinians were going nowhere. If they agree to leave Gaza for any other place, this has to be their native place in areas now called Israel.
Israel denies what is happening in Gaza as genocide. That's something obviously you feel very differently about. Do you feel that Trump's words mean the end of any possible two-state solution, which for so long has been the best hope of the Palestinians?
But hang on there, that I feel differently about what Israel believes about the genocide. It's not me feeling. It's not me accusing. This is a clear verdict by the International Court of Justice that the South Africa case against Israel of committing genocide.
That was about war crimes.
Yeah, okay, so you expect war criminals in Israel to admit their war crimes? Or we need to listen to the ICC that issued an arrest warrant against Netanyahu? So better the media start describing Netanyahu as the internationally wanted Benjamin Netanyahu. So this is not about Palestinians feeling it was genocide. This is about international judicial system saying it's genocide. So they did the genocide, yet the people remain. That's the point. So if you were able to mass kill, mass murder, mass destroy, Gaza is a wasteland, yet people, and you saw the hundreds of thousands marching back to their homes. So no force on earth can remove the Palestinians from our homes. That's the point I'm trying to make. And the Palestinian government, the state of Palestine, has all the plans ready to rebuild our homes, our farms, our livelihoods. Everything is on the borders. We have the relationship with the region and the international community. There will be an international conference in Egypt. Egypt will give us all the help possible. So will the rest of the world. So that's the future. And the future has got to do with your question about the two-state solution.
Indeed.
The future is about the international consensus. The future is about the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. That's ending the occupation. That's establishing a state of Palestine with Jerusalem as its capital. That is the right of return
Indeed.
of the Palestinian people to their homes. And can I stress the right of return? If people from Gaza will go anywhere later, it will be back to their original homes inside the 48 areas, not anywhere else. We only have one homeland, that is Palestine.
Anyway, we haven't heard the last word on this. I'll come back with more updates soon. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you do think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. The details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.